My best friend stayed late helping me pack. Then pointed at my bed. "Which side is mine?" The last box slipped from my trembling hands and hit the floor with a dull thud that echoed through the nearly empty apartment. Everything I had built over 6 years had been reduced to cardboard boxes, bubble wrap, and painful memories. My engagement had ended only 3 weeks earlier, my future had disappeared overnight, and now I was leaving the place that had once felt like home. I believed I was packing my belongings, but the truth was that I was trying to pack away a broken heart. Then, after hours of helping me without asking for anything in return, my best friend looked at the unmade bed in the empty bedroom and casually asked which side was hers. In that single moment, everything I thought I knew about love, friendship, and healing changed forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, loyalty, and second chances still exist in this world, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more emotional stories that remind us love sometimes arrives when we least expect it. A year earlier, my life had looked completely different. I had been planning a wedding, choosing flowers, discussing honeymoon destinations, and imagining a future with the woman I believed would be my forever. When she confessed that she had fallen in love with someone else, she didn't just end our relationship. She erased every dream we had carefully built together. Friends who had once filled our apartment suddenly disappeared because they didn't want to choose sides. Family members tried to comfort me, but everyone eventually returned to their own lives. Only one person stayed without hesitation. Her name was Emma, and she had been my best friend since university. Emma never tried to fix my pain with clever advice. She simply showed up. She brought takeaway food when I forgot to eat. She convinced me to take evening walks when I spent entire weekends hiding behind closed curtains. She listened without interrupting as I repeated the same painful questions over and over, wondering what I could have done differently. She never judged me for crying or for feeling angry. She simply reminded me that surviving one difficult day meant I could survive another. When my landlord informed me that the lease was ending and the rent would increase beyond what I could afford alone, moving became unavoidable. Looking around the apartment where every corner carried memories of a life that no longer existed felt unbearable. I planned to pack everything by myself because I didn't want anyone witnessing another chapter of my failure. Emma ignored every excuse I made. Early Saturday morning she arrived carrying coffee, breakfast sandwiches, and a roll of packing tape. She wore old jeans because she expected hard work, not because she expected gratitude. We spent hour after hour wrapping dishes, folding clothes, carrying furniture downstairs, and filling the moving van. We barely talked about my heartbreak anymore. Instead, we laughed over embarrassing university stories, remembered ridiculous road trips, and found old photographs that somehow survived years inside forgotten drawers. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the city skyline, the apartment looked almost empty. Only a few bags remained beside the bedroom wall. I stood in the center of the room, suddenly overwhelmed by the silence. Without furniture, every sound echoed. The apartment no longer resembled the place where birthdays had been celebrated or where plans for the future had once been whispered late at night. That was when I realized Emma looked exhausted. Her hands were covered with tiny cuts from broken cardboard. She had spent nearly 12 hours helping me despite working a full week herself. I apologized for stealing her entire weekend, but she smiled in that familiar way that always made difficult days feel lighter. She glanced toward the only remaining piece of furniture, the mattress lying directly on the floor, and casually asked which side was hers. At first I laughed because I assumed she was joking. Then I noticed she wasn't laughing. She explained that she had already spoken to my new landlord earlier that week. The spare bedroom in my new flat was empty, and until I found my footing again, she planned to move in for a while. She had quietly arranged remote work with her employer and had even brought 2 suitcases hidden in her car. She knew I would never ask for help, so she decided not to wait for me to ask. I didn't know what to say. No romantic confession filled the room. No dramatic music played. There was only overwhelming gratitude that someone believed I was worth standing beside when I had stopped believing it myself. The following months became the slow rebuilding of a life I had assumed was over. Emma's presence transformed ordinary routines into moments of healing. Morning coffee became conversations about future goals instead of past regrets. Grocery shopping became an adventure filled with laughter over forgotten shopping lists. Even paying bills felt less frightening when someone reminded me that difficult seasons don't last forever. Gradually, I found confidence to apply for a better job. I started exercising again. I reconnected with family members I had pushed away during my depression. For the first time in months, I caught myself smiling without forcing it. One rainy evening, after returning home from receiving a promotion I never imagined earning, I noticed Emma sitting quietly on the balcony watching the rain. It suddenly struck me that throughout every painful chapter of my life, she had never asked for recognition. She had simply chosen kindness every single day. I realized the safest place I had ever known wasn't an apartment or a city. It was the person who never walked away when life became complicated. Our friendship slowly became something deeper, not because either of us had planned it, but because trust had quietly grown into love. There were no grand declarations. There was only the certainty that the person who had helped me pack away my broken past had also helped me build an entirely new future. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of someone who never gave up on you, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that inspire hope, compassion, and second chances. Before the story ends, tell us in the comments, has someone ever stayed beside you when the whole world seemed to walk away? Years later, people often asked us when we first realized we loved each other. They expected an anniversary, a first kiss, or a romantic holiday. We always smiled because the answer was much simpler. Love began the day one exhausted best friend looked at an empty room, pointed toward a lonely bed, and quietly assumed there would always be a place beside me. Sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with perfect timing or dramatic confessions. They begin with kindness, unwavering loyalty, and someone choosing to stay when leaving would have been much easier. That simple decision changed my entire life, proving that even after our hearts are broken, they can still become home again.